Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies. How are you? My name is Tonya, the Self-Care Maven. Welcome to today's live. A little late because I was contemplating a number of things about this topic. And today's topic is hustle culture is the gateway to burnout. For a long time, I have had these discussions with both clients and colleagues, friends, family members, other Black, and unfortunately, it's always the same story. And I think a lot of times we get into this mode where we think that perhaps we're the only ones experiencing this or it's all in our heads, and it is not. Hustle culture is indeed the gateway to burnout. And I say this because I've done some other videos where I've talked about self care for Black women, decolonized self care, what that looks like, and why we need it as Black women and Black people living in a society where we have so many points of intersectionality, especially living under systems of oppression, discrimination, and exploitation, which is on 10 here in North America. Now, like a number of other strategies, our ancestors, our predecessors, our parents, our grandparents practiced. I'm having a little trouble with the microphone. That was the other thing, too, about going live today. Had some issues with the audio. I still think I'm having some technical difficulties, but let's see what happens. Anyhoodle. Um, I've had this discussion a number of times, and it's just disheartening that, again, we're having to have this whole discussion because I think a lot of people, particularly Black people, we've been so conditioned to finding creative strategies in order to navigate the systemic racism, oppression, and exploitation in this country that we just get stuck in a rut, in a vicious cycle. And I've said this before. A number of the strategies we as Black women, we as Black people have utilized to navigate and thrive and not and get beyond survival mode living here in the US and North America in general. A number of those strategies we've used, while some of them in the short term helped us build community, helped us survive, helped us advance, create generational wealth. Unfortunately, on a long term basis, a lot of these strategies are not just problematic, but they are maladaptive. And we see this a lot now. Excuse me, I don't know how many of you are having issues with the audio here. I keep having issues with my audio. But anyway, back to what I was talking about. A lot of times we use strategies over a long period of time that really were not meant for long-term usage. And this is not to place blame on our predecessors, on our parents, our grandparents. I mean, they did what they had to do to get us to this point. They did what they had to do for generational wealth, for generational stability, survival, and thriving in a society that wasn't built for us. Let us be clear, the US of A, including the diaspora, let us keep it real, was not built for people who look like us. It was built on our blood, our sweat, our tears, our dehumanization, brutality, and horrors that many have never experienced historically. And when it comes to hustle culture, like a lot of things, a lot of innovations and things that Black people create, it's been co opted because hustle culture, I've said this in an earlier video. If you have questions about uh, what hustle culture is, it's ties to white supremacy, or rather, inferiority, patriarchy, and racism. You can watch some of my earlier live videos that I did on that, as well as self-care, decolonized self-care, and what that looks like. I spoke to the fact before that hustle culture was built on that. It is, I liken it to the plantation 2.0. And I say that because it is killing us. It is killing us as Black women. It is killing us as Black people. It is a strategy that was largely reactionary, but also has a lot of the underpinnings of racism under that and white supremacy up under that too. I'm not going to go into the weeds about that, but the point of the matter is hustle culture is the gateway to burnout. We already know that statistically, Black women have the highest rate of education, have the most degrees, sit in leadership prior to this current administration in numbers that are unprecedented. Now, that being said, we, in order to get to these positions, education, why so much education? Why so many degrees? Why so much experience and knowledge? Why have we adopted this as a strategy for advancement and security and creating generational wealth as Black women? Well, because of racism. The simple answer is because of racism. We've had to work 2, 3, 4, 5 times as hard as our white counterparts, white women, white males in society, even our own against our own men. We've had to consistently deal with misogyny, Black version of patriarchy. We've had to deal with that as Black women. And so, in order to get a equal footing, to in any way make similar strides in terms of advancement and financially upward mobility, we as Black women have had to do this hustle thing. And now we're seeing the results. There's so much data that supports how detrimental this is to our health and well-being. This is why a lot of wonderful Black female creators are talking about it's time for Black women to opt out. And this is why that movement of rest is resistance has come about. It is the acknowledgement and realization that we have been stuck in the matrix on that hamster wheel going nowhere because living under systems of oppression, racism, institutionalized racism, it's killing us. Constantly on a daily basis dealing with microaggressions in some form or other. And microaggressions really are what? It's passive acts and modes of racism that are not overtly violent, but they are violent. And that has a wearing effect on us as Black people. And the data is out there. For anyone who has questions about resources, Google Scholar is free. I'm not here to provide additional resources other than what I've made freely available. But again, it goes back to if you're truly invested in knowing the truth, if you're truly invested in elevating and moving to and understanding what Black people, and particularly Black women, are constantly being exposed to, and you want to be an allyship, true allyship with Black women, you're going to need to do the work. Having said that, back to my Black sisters across the world, everywhere. When it comes to hustle culture, it's time for us to divest because all it does is reinforce those negative patterns that we have existed and utilized to quote unquote keep our heads above water, get those things that we are actually having to disproportionately fight for, even though we've done the work to get access to that. And so when it comes to hustle culture in the context of decolonized self care, it is important to know that if you are going to embark on that journey, and this is, I will die on that hill of decolonize self-care because that is foundational, not just to Black women living healthy and aligned lives. But in order for us to survive and continue to thrive as Black women and as Black people, decolonized self care is the foundation that you need. It's necessary. There are no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And so when you begin to tap into decolonized self care, you will be ultimately forced to decouple and disconnect from things like hustle culture because hustle culture is bondage. It is it's servitude 2.0. It has you gaslit into thinking that continuously giving from a place of emptiness, continuously trying to prove that you deserve access to certain things, continuously buying into that scam will continue to burn you out and destroy your health and well being. Let us understand. It's time we all understand as Black women and as Black people that hustle culture is a scam. It is built and thrives on the system of institutionalized racism and discriminatory practices. There is no way that remaining on a hamster wheel, let's consider, visualize a hamster going faster and faster and faster on a wheel, trying to keep pace with someone who's not on a wheel. And that someone who's not on a wheel are those who benefit from systemic racism and exploitation, i.e., here's a clue, not you, not people who look like you. It's the progeny and generations of a group of people whose ancestors and relatives, past and present, built systems on our backs to benefit themselves and elevate themselves. There is no way any system founded on that is going to ultimately benefit you or your people. And I think that's something we are going to have to get honest about. I believe a number of us are finally waking up, and that's why we have this movement where we're saying Black women are resting now, but also Black women are opting out. Black people are opting out, sitting back, restoring, and tapping into ancestral restoration. And when you decouple and when you opt out of hustle culture, because that's also trying to counter narratives that our people are lazy and our people don't like to work and XYZ. But why did that narrative come about? The moment Black people said no more slavery, we're going to fight this. The moment civil rights came about, the moment we said no more free labor, not just labor, but exploitation of Black bodies, of Black female bodies, then this negative narrative came about. Similarly to what happened politically last year when Black people, particularly Black women, said, we are going to sit back. It's time for us to rest and other people to do their own work, that you started getting this pushback. Why? Anytime those who benefit from your exploitation, from your burnout, from your dis-ease, from your free labor, there's always going to be pushback from this. And when it comes to hustle culture, the same, you're going to have the same thing. Why? Because it's founded on the same foundation. And so when I say that hustle culture is the gateway to burnout, it truly is, because there is no way anyone can sustain that manic, heightened, over giving, overdoing. There's no way to successfully and sustainably, in a healthy way, maintain such um, work, level of work and activity. I've talked about this before. In the natural world, when necessary, every living thing has a point of rest, restoration, recovery. There is life, there is death, there is recovery, there is nurturing. We human beings require the same thing in order to survive, in order to thrive, in order to exist. It is a natural state of being. Hustle culture is so unnatural, so such an abomination that it's unfortunate that we as human beings have a tendency, we're so adaptive that we can actually take that to a level that is so unhealthy. And that is a result of uh, the external environment in which we live, social, cultural, and political pressures that bear on us, that force us into ways of being that are actually unnatural. And so, decolonized self care calls for us to reclaim what is natural, what is ancestral, what is supposed to be. We're always supposed to be at a point of homeostasis, a point of balance, a point of alignment. Hustle culture is counter to that. The fact that the health outcomes, the analysis of testing, diagnostics, and all of that are speaking to the fact that we as Black people, particularly Black women, are disproportionately suffering from mental health issues, from things like diabetes, heart disease, risk for cancer, increased risk for cancer and autoimmune diseases. That's no accident. That is not coincidental. That is literally the evidence and proof that hustle culture and that insanity of living that way is not beneficial for us as people and not beneficial for us as women. And this is why it is so important. And I fully, fully, fully endorse any Black woman who is preaching that from the rooftops because it's time for us to stop doing this. It's time for us to decouple and decenter from that. And one of the foundational ways of achieving that long term and in a sustainable manner is decolonized self care. Not what you see out there, because what you see out there in mainstream media is not self care. Let me repeat, all of the stuff claiming to be self care that's out there in mainstream media is not self care. Decolonized self care calls for us to reclaim our ancient ways of healing and renewing. And it's also calling us into community. And so when you look at, if you want to get a clear, uh, see the clear differences between decolonized self care and what's out there, look at what it's pushing. What's out there is a hodgepodge, crude tapestry, collage of stolen indigenous practices from across the world that have been packaged and marketed to you at a price you can barely afford. And notice those who are the headliners of that quote unquote self care or wellness industry that's being pushed out there in mainstream media, most of the faces look nothing like you. And that is by design because modalities and systems that are built on the exploitation and marginalization of Indigenous and Black and Indigenous people, that's the way it looks. It's built on exploitation, it's built on theft, stolen practices that have been stripped of their cultural and ancient histories and context, you see it. And then they try to repackage and resell it to you. Things like you see these trends on TikTok where, things that we have as Black people have been doing for generations that were built either out of necessity or cultural carryovers from our native lands that our ancestors managed to retain when they were brought here to the New World. You have all these, you know, a certain, demographic co-opting that and trying to rename it as what is it, clean girl aesthetic, or something to the order of, oh, it's acai. Yes, that juice. We just discovered the health benefits of that, or we just found out the health benefits of chewing sticks. My people, we've been using that for centuries, for generations, okay? These things, stealing indigenous medicines and that are actually part of rituals for healing that have been stolen by the pharmaceutical industry. I could go on and on and on about that. Bill actually write a dissertation on that. And actually dissertations have been written about how the pharmaceutical industry has stolen indigenous medicine and pulled it and stripped it of its cultural and historical context and repackaged it and are making millions and billions of dollars selling it and making it inaccessible to largely the populations that came up with these medicines to begin with. And that's a whole nother rant of mine. But at the end of the day, I need you to understand that hustle culture is the gateway. Just like there are gateway drugs, hustle culture is the gateway to burnout. Why? Because it is a conditioning trap where you get stuck in a loop of overextending yourself and giving of yourself until there's nothing left. Your health crashes, your mental health suffers, and you end up being a husk of yourself. The achievement, the illusion of the achievement, and the trappings of success that you're chasing, still that when that goalpost keeps changing, because this is what another thing we need to understand too is within this society in the way it's structured, the only way to win is to exit that system. And within the system, the goalpost constantly changes. And so you're constantly on that wheel trying to achieve the same level of success as those who built the system. It's just not going to work. And it is the more you see that, the more you recognize that, the more it impacts your mental health, the more it impacts your physical health. And this is why I need us to understand that this is something we're going to need to divest from. There is currently a movement across the globe to do that. I'm sure you've noticed on a lot of other platforms, you have a lot of Black wellness coaches, mental health coaches, therapists speaking to the same thing in one way or another. You've got to divest from this hustle culture, i.e., Plantation 2.0. You've got to divest from the colonized version of self care because that's never going to meet your needs as a Black person or person of color. Anything that's stripped of its indigeneity, that's stripped of its cultural, historical, ancestral connections in terms of healing and refueling and renewing, it's not going to work for you. The only thing it will do is deplete your resources, and that's financially and otherwise. And I always come back to at the end of my videos with this visualization. I always say, why go into a space that you already know is one, you're the only one who looks like you in that space, and you already know it's unsafe, and then you expect unrealistically to feel to any in any way, shape, or form be renewed or healed or held in that space. Ask yourself those questions Because my response, that's why you have a number. I'm so happy there is a Black yoga. She's on Instagram, and I believe she's on Threads now. There's a Black instructor who does wellness retreats for Black women in various parts of the diaspora. I love her, where she speaks about this too. And it's all about understanding, even in the natural world, when prey animals are resting, know that there are no predators in that space. And you need to start thinking like that. And I know this is going to trigger some folk, especially if you're outside of the Black community and you're tuning into this, but you're going to have to trigger through. Black women, you cannot heal, renew, reclaim in a space that wasn't built for you. If you are the only one in a quote unquote space where you're attempting to heal, renew, uh, work on your physical fitness, that's not going to do anything for you. It might do a little bit for you in the short term, but in terms of long term benefits, it's not built for you. And that's why a number of us on and off platform in the health and wellness space now are building spaces that are specifically tailored to the needs of Black women. Why? Because in order to fully heal, in order to fully renew and actually achieve that point of balance, alignment, homeostasis that all of nature requires in order to grow, to thrive, and heal, you're going to need to do that in a place that is safe for you. And typically, safe spaces mean that you feel safe. You're not in a space where someone is directing microaggressions at you, also known as passive racism. You're not facing hostility because of the way you look, because of who you are. You are in a space that is community grounded by people who look like you, who have the same uh, experiences, largely the same experiences, but also you're bringing that ancestral energy as well. And there's something to be said for the energy that Black women and other women of color bring to their spaces. And it is unique to us, and it is a requirement in order for us to do the work that's necessary for us to heal and thrive and counteract anti Blackness, systems of oppression, patriarchy, misogynoir, whatever you want to call it. All of those things that we're constantly bombarded with because we live in and exist in Black female bodies. So I wanted to give us that takeaway and to share that. I'll be talking more on this series regarding hustle culture, decolonized self-care, because I still keep getting a lot of questions off platform about how do I practice decolonized self-care, because I need us to understand too that decolonized self-care doesn't require you to spend ridiculous amounts of money. It doesn't require you to buy some crazy weird subscription from somebody selling something on a pyramid scheme. No, it is a reclamation. It is a going back to the ways of being, to ways of healing, community, sisterhood. All of that is encompasses decolonize self-care. And so I'm going to be talking going forward in the next couple of weeks, especially leading into the month of August, because that tends to be a month of transformation, not just for me, but for a lot of people. And I want to talk more about decolonize self-care, uh, the parallels between hustle culture, burnout, and all of those things. Because I think as Black women, we need to be talking about this more, and we really, really need to do the internal work that's necessary. When it comes to the self care that's out there, a lot of it is very surface level, it's very superficial, and that's by design. It's very artificial, it's very disconnected to the natural environment. A lot of indigenous cultures, Black people, this is something we have understood, our ancestors have understood. We have a unique connection with the earth, with the planet, in with the environment. And I think that's also why, to a large extent, we're so impacted when things are out of alignment. And this is a historical truth. When Black people, when non-Black people, white America, or what have you, catch a cold, we get pneumonia. We have always been the canary in the coal mines. We've always been the harbingers of things are coming. Hey, this is happening. And this is our ties and our ancestral roots to community, to spirituality, to environment. This is a cultural carryover that is almost, arguably in our DNA. And this is something that we as a people have always carried within us and intuitively know to some degree. And it's time for us to tap back into that in order to come full circle when it comes to our healing and thriving, not just surviving, but thriving and disconnecting and opting out of those systems and cycles that are detrimental to our health and well being as Black women and as Black people. So I'm just going to leave it there for tonight. And I'll talk more about this, like I said, later in the week, but make sure you subscribe and hit the notification button, because even though I have one time that I, might or might not go live or drop a video. If you want those notifications and those resources that will be dropped with the description later on when I go live, I do have a tendency to add other information, resources, things of that nature. You can go to the blog, freedomatthecrossroads.com, where I also have a number of free resources as well. You can follow me on Instagram. Just click the link in my description, my channel description page. I have all my links there. But by and large, subscribe and follow me on my channel here. I'm trying to build a community that is growing. And so I encourage all Black women to tune in and, let's form that circle, let's form that community of healing and wellness where it's about reclaiming and recentering for our better health, better wellness, and our overall alignment and just flourishing. Because let us be sincere. Black women as the blueprint, it's time for us to thrive. This is our season going forward. And it's no longer a time where we allow things that are regressive and detrimental to our health and well being. It's no longer we allow those things, it's no longer allowed. Let's leave that in the past as we move on through the year. It's our season. It's our season to thrive as Black women. It's our season to move forward, and in order to do that, you have to tap in, own decolonized self care, because that is a foundation to your, not just your upward mobility, but to thriving and living sustainably whole and fully you, authentically you. So, till next time, thank you for joining me. Goodbye.